About this time, I was interviewed by William Inge, the playwright, for Splendor in the Grass, which was going up on Broadway. And he was working on another play called A Loss of Roses. Inge said that the play was about a down-and-out stripper, still young enough that she could do something, and her sleazy boyfriend who kept running her through sideshows and strip joints. And he said every line that Lila, with the character's name, every line that she speaks, he says, I hear coming out of Marilyn. He said, I'm hoping we can do the play because I want Marilyn to be able to do the play. The play actually did not feature Marilyn at all. It featured someone else. And I think Warren Beatty played the part of the young fellow who I was eventually up for. And it only ran about 21 performances, so it wasn't very good. When the play finally opened in Los Angeles, I did the lead in the play with an actress named Regina Gleason. And this was like the Los Angeles run, which was using his original concepts, which were far darker than the play was in New York. And also his concepts were the play was to be much more sexual. The character Marilyn was to play was about 8 or 9 years older than the boy was supposed to be, who's the one she gets involved with. I had a lot of people that were very interested in my work at the time. I was with Lester Salco Agency and Mr. Claude Rains, who was interested in me as an actor, and Raymond Burr. Jerry Wald was interested in me, who was a producer. He'd already produced one film with Marilyn and was in process of producing the second film, which was Let's Make Love. The play had a fairly good run. It got wonderful reviews. I got reviews as the best thing in the play. Jerry Wald had more or less penciled me in that I was going to do this part as soon as they got the script written. Marilyn was going to play the stripper, Lila. Trevio was already designing her costumes for the movie, which was to be called A Woman of Summer. That was the original title they had. And a fellow named Meade Roberts was writing the script. I didn't like Meade Roberts. I didn't like his work, and Marilyn didn't like it either. Curtis Harrington, who was a close friend of mine for a number of years, probably since 1957, was Jerry Wald's assistant and associate producer. And Curtis kind of covered all the groundwork for Jerry, and he was very much in favor of my doing the movie with Marilyn. And Marilyn was hot to do the picture. She loved certain parts of it, which was mainly she loved the intensity, the sex scenes. It would have actually been probably an X-rated movie and the standards the way they were then. There was another scene in which she attempts suicide with broken glass, and Marilyn was dying to do that part. It was a chance for her to suddenly do something very dramatic, and she could really give her all. Although I didn't think that Marilyn probably really liked the idea, since she was always thinking about suicide and her family. There was suicide in her family, but yet she wanted to do it, and I felt that she was maybe going to break through somehow on her own some way. This tendency she had to withhold deep emotions are very clear in the last film she did. There's a scene in which she's screaming in the middle of the desert. Marilyn didn't like doing that scene, and yet that is probably one of the most outstanding motion picture bits of acting that has ever been, probably. The things that she did in that picture, as well as the picture being one of the best films America ever produced. So whether the suicide scene would have been troubling for her is anyone's guess. I don't know. I doubt it. At this time she was thinking that she was going to be able to do all kinds of stuff because Strasberg had given her some kind of psychological license to be able to work freely. She even had Paula Strasberg along with her, who was making $5,000 a week during the whole making of a couple of pictures, such as Let's Make Love. Paula was always involved in that. When the rushes were shown for Let's Make Love, I was on the lot and I went with Curtis to see the rushes. Paula Strasberg was sitting with Marilyn down towards front, and Marilyn was obviously disturbed by what she was seeing on screen. And Paula kept telling her, no, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, you're wonderful, you're lovely," and kept stroking her in her head and telling her how wonderful she was, how absolutely great she was in the movie, and nobody could come close to what she was doing. It was very, very interesting to see that strange relationship going on like that. From very early years, Marilyn got it into her head that she wanted to be like Jean Harlow. She was going to be as important as Jean Harlow. This was mostly planted into her head by a kind of a foster mother substitute in a way. This woman, who always was a frustrated actress, convinced Marilyn that she was so beautiful that she was just going to be a movie star. So even as a child, when you would take her somewhere and she said, "I want you to meet Norma Jean," Marilyn would say, "My name is Norma Jean and I'm going to be a movie star." So from very early age, she knew where she was headed, and each time that she would do these magazines, it was as though Norma Jean is the next movie star. And so she wanted that very desperately. And once she had obtained it, she became very possessive of it and held it tightly. I know that Cukor just was ready to shoot himself over some of the scenes in Let's Make Love. It was just devastating, her problems with that. Even the choreographer was having problems with her, who actually wrote a book. Everyone thinks he was very fond of Marilyn, but he really wasn't. He was really very critical of her. Another picture which Cukor was directing called Something's Gotta Give. And this film, which was destined to failure from the very beginning, would prove to be Marilyn's last effort. It would not be her last film. The Misfits would be her last film. And she was having so much trouble on the set of Something's Gotta Give that she was barely on the set. She would make appearances like maybe 3 days out of 12. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Taylor, they were making Cleopatra, which had the studio on its knees financially, and they just couldn't afford any further expenses, and so they decided what we'll do is blame Marilyn. Marilyn went back to New York to sing Happy Birthday at John F. Kennedy's birthday party. Marilyn wanted to go, she planned to go, but the studio wanted to forbid her from going. And Marilyn said, "No, I'm going to go." And so she went. And the studio at that point said, "This is our beautiful excuse to fire her. She wouldn't come back. She's all finished. She can hang it up. We're done with Marilyn Monroe. She'll never work in this town again," which is always a famous Hollywood expression. But Marilyn went on a campaign which shows her stamina and really her business sense. She appeared within a very short period of time over probably every magazine cover in existence. And the studio started getting really nervous because obviously Marilyn Monroe was going to work certainly again, and we might as well take her on. So Marilyn went back to the studio, made a new contract for more money than she'd ever had in her life. She used to get less than some of the crew people, but now she would finish Something's Gotta Give, and she had for another picture to be made. She bought a house. She'd never owned a house in her life. She'd moved more than any person I have ever seen. She moved to so many addresses, it takes like a pamphlet to fill them with all the addresses of where this woman at 36 years of age had lived, from like almost weekly different places. Well, she bought the house in Brentwood, and she only had it for 6 months before she died. When the final script came in for A Woman of Summer, which they had changed the title to The Stripper, Curtis Harrington called me and said, I want to let you know that I've got a copy of the script, the final one, and you're not going to really like a lot of it, and Marilyn is going to hate it. So please do not show the script to Marilyn at this time until Jerry Wald has the final version and can address it himself to her. I didn't pay any attention to not letting Marilyn see it or anything. I don't even think I was off the lot when I called her and said that I had the copy of the script and she's not going to like it. I said, "Do you want to meet?" We used to meet a couple of times in Beverly Hills and have coffee, but she said, "Well, no, I'll come over to your place." And I had a small place right off of La Cienega and Melrose at the time. And Marilyn came over and she looked at the script and so much of it was cut and changed that she got really annoyed, and she burned it in the fireplace I had there. My desire to become a movie star at that time really faded rapidly, and I just really realized that most of my life I've been chasing something that I didn't really want to do. I changed my whole life at that point, because I felt that to star in a movie with Marilyn Monroe, it would have been kind of the epitome of what I really want, what I was after. Yeah, Kim Novak, who I'd see on the lot at Fox, said she's never going to do it again, although she has. But she said, I'm never going to be an actress again. That's the end. The death of Marilyn shows her that this whole game is disastrous for the personality, for your head. I didn't write about Marilyn Monroe for over 40 years. Until this book. I delved into myself, I delved into people I've known all for many, many years, distant relatives of hers, everyone I knew that I had close relationships with who were also in the movie business and who had done pictures with Marilyn. I cornered them and we got talking, and I talked about this and they told me everything they knew. I've got people I wrote about that nobody has interviewed, like Richard Allen. Richard knew her very well. She was a real confidant to Richard Allen, and back and forth, the two of them. They talked about all kinds of things. And Roy Calhoun, after all, nobody talks about it. Roy Calhoun made 3 pictures with Marilyn. 3 pictures, I want to write about everything that I personally know and feel about her. But the book is written from someone inside who spent their entire life inside that big glass bubble that is Hollywood, where everything goes on that nobody else in the universe knows about. And it's always been that way, and it really isn't anymore because we don't even have a movie industry anymore. The studio system long since failed, and motion pictures have completely failed as they used to be, and we're stepping into a new age of something or other. I don't know what it is, but, it's okay.
Oh, no one is near. I may cry. Oh, but no one will hear. Mama may scold me, 'cause she's told me